Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Podcast. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast.
And that's right, everybody. Just like you heard from Bobo live at the Met game out at Citi Field, this is the Best Seat in the House podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us here. So, as we can see, Dan, you're fresh coming back from the Met game tonight. So, how you feeling after catching this doubleheader today?
Oh, it's just a split of a doubleheader. Was even though, of course, unfortunately, we're out of contention. Not another year not making the playoffs. It's going to be, I think, going into next year, it's going to be 39 years since the last time we've won a World Series. If my math is correct, going into next year, 39 years since we've left the series.
Well, no, it was 86, which is the year I was born. So it's going to be 37 this year, just like me. It'll be 38 next year, just like me.
38, yeah. It'll be official. Right, so it'll be officially 38 years since our last championship going into next year.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's a sad state of affairs for our Mets. You know what? And I guess that's just about as good as any place to start it right now. We'll start off with the Mets. So, just as you mentioned, obviously they split the doubleheader today with the Marlins. Mets is 72 and 86, Marlins 82 and 76, currently tied for that final wild card spot in the National League. So, it's a positive season, I guess, for Miami, and the first time that they've really been in a pennant race outside of that wacky, 2020 season. But other than that, this is the first time the Marlins have been in a real pennant race in a full 162 game season, probably since that 2003 year, right?
Yeah, it's about. I was just hoping we could get our revenge for 2007 and 2008 this series.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And unfortunately, fortunately in the first game, it looked like the Mets were, on pace to have a pretty good day as they roughed up the lefty Garrett for the Marlins in game one. They went out there and pounded 11 runs out, beat them 11-2. Then in game two, it was a much tighter affair. Johnny Cueto, every Met fan's favorite villain from that 2015 World Series that defeated the Mets. He pitched a gem complete game in game two in Kansas City to give the Royals that 2-0 lead that unfortunately the Mets would not be able to overcome. He comes out today. He doesn't pitch great. He allowed 2 home runs to Lindor. It was 2-2. And, he pitched pretty good. What did you think seeing him in person, Dan? Does Johnny Cueto still have decent stuff?
The PTSD because he's a 2015 Royal. So kind of does bring back that terrible memory seeing that guy in a mound. Also, I have to say, well, on a positive note in the game, of course, I have to say that congratulations on Francisco Lindor in joining the handful of Mets that could say they've had 30 seasons, including some greats that we've had in the past. And of course, 87, we had Howard Johnson and Darryl Strawberry become the teammates to have a 30 season. And of course, remember 2007, the captain David Wright also had a 30 season. And not only that, Kodai Senga just got 200 strikeouts, tying the Mets single season rookie record for strikeouts.
Well, he didn't tie the record actually. He's just the first Met rookie pitcher to strike out 200 since Doc Gooden did it in '84, where Gooden actually struck out 276 that year, which is just insane to think how many strikeouts he had. So yeah, Gooden had 276, which is the rookie record. But yeah, I mean Kodai is the first Met rookie to strike out 200 since then, and that's a pretty good feat. I mean, he came in today with 194 strikeouts, and by no means was it a guarantee he was going to get the requisite amount to hit that mark. And yeah, he did it and then some. So 202 strikeouts for Kodai. Hell of a year. Like you said, I mean, just to be in the same conversation as rookie year Doc Gooden is kind of a special feat, right?
Exactly. Then of course, also that second game at a doubleheader reminded me of why we have one of the reasons we've had such a horrible season was we literally had no bullpen.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely not wrong about that. Unfortunately, Adam Ottavino was tagged his seventh loss of the year, but I can't kill him too much because it really was related to a lot to that terrible defense by Brett Beatty, where he booted the ball up the third base line. But before we move on completely from Kodai, I did want to point this out. I mean, we're talking about where he stands in the Mets, history. Where he stands this year is pretty damn good too. I mean, Kodai Senga, as you can see on the bottom there, 29 starts. It's unfortunate that he didn't get to hit that nice round 30 mark, but hey, 29 starts is pretty damn good. 166 in a third innings, 12-7 record, not too bad for a crappy team. 2.98 ERA. Now you look at that, and if you're an old school baseball fan like me and you, Dan, a 2.98 ERA is good. It's not gonna, knock your socks off. It's not gonna surprise you. It's not gonna jump off the page. But 2.98 ERA was good enough to be second in the National League so far. If things hold up through these last 5 or 6 games, he's gonna end up with the second best ERA in the National League. That's a pretty big feat, right?
Yeah, it's a big feat. I mean, I feel like Senga just exceeded expectations because it was an unknown going into the season, but so far he's lived up to the expectations. I heard, and I somehow had a feeling it was probably going to be the case because I heard in interviews and stuff saying how throughout his time in Japan he was kind of getting ready for the to be in the majors. Apparently he was warming up using MLB regulation balls during the when because in Japan the balls are like slightly a little different. So he was using MLB regulation balls when warming up to try to ready for himself. Like he had in his mind that he was gonna eventually get pitch in the majors. Can you? I can't hear you.
Oh, yep. Sorry about that. Yeah, but I'm sure that was his goal, no doubt about it, Dan. I mean, when you look at you know what he did to get here, he he was one of the best pitchers in Japan over the last couple of years, and he could have stayed in Japan and still been at one of the top at his position, but instead he chose to trust his talent, come to the U.S., and it's paid off big time for him. I mean, obviously this season didn't work out for him and the Mets, but at least the Mets know that they got a pretty damn good pitcher right now. And Senga ended up being the rock of this rotation. As funny as it is, a guy 29 starts, 166 innings doesn't necessarily sound like a guy that was the bell cow, if you will. But man, I mean, he ended up leading the team in innings pitched. He ended up leading the team in wins. He ended up leading the team in strikeouts and starts. So Kodai Senga, for whatever it is, 15 million, I think, 5 years, 75 million. That seems like a steal right now, right?
Yeah, it feels like we got him at a steal, and I hope he keeps this up going into next year.
Yeah, well, you make a good point, because that is something that I think about too. Because you look at Senga's numbers, right, and as good as they are, I feel like we can't appreciate them as much because of how much the Mets were irrelevant for the entire second half of the season. I feel like if Senga put these same numbers up in a year like last season, where we were in playoff contention and every game mattered, man, people would really be talking big things about Kodai Senga, and he would really be getting a lot of the credit he deserves. But unfortunately, with this crappy year, he's kind of just been able to fly under the radar, and he's not even, as I am confident, and if I was a voter for the rookie of the year, I would vote for him. But I personally think, with all the stolen bases and home runs and everything, I do believe that Corbin Carroll of Arizona is probably going to take home that rookie of the year for the National League. I mean, I don't know, Dan. What do you think about that? Do you think that Senga's going to take it home, or do you think it's probably going to go to Corbin Carroll?
Probably going to go to Corbin Carroll. Probably don't. I just my gut feeling just has a feeling that's going to happen.
Yeah, just kind of like trying to predict where these voters go, because especially, I feel like this is almost the year of the home run and the stolen base. You mentioned um, Lindor with the great 30-30 season. Obviously, we saw Acuna having this incredible season. Not only his second 40-40 season, it's now his second. This is the first ever 40-70 season in the history of Major League Baseball. This freaking guy has stolen 70 bases while also hitting 40 home runs. Just astonishing. This is like back in the day, if Ricky Henderson had been hitting 40 home runs. So definitely the year of the home run and stolen base. So I feel like that's the way that the voters are going to project it, right?
Yeah, I just have a feeling that's going to happen, and I feel like almost all the playoff races are wrapping up, except for maybe one or two.
Yeah. It looks like this American League East is coming down to the wire right now. And as we're talking about that, we might as well take a look at the Yankees right now. The Yankees actually beat the no, it's not the Orioles. The Yankees beat the Blue Jays tonight, as the Blue Jays continue to fight for the playoffs. Garrett Cole went out there. They got stymied yesterday for 6 innings by Michael King, who's really making his case. And then the Yankees ended up hitting a late home run off the bat of Austin Wells, taking that game 2-0 yesterday. Today they take it 6-0. And Garrett Cole, we're just talking about awards. Well, this is the thing we're going to be talking about baseball for the 2023 season, is the awards we could get. The Mets possibly could take home a Rookie of the Year, or they're at least going to have a guy in the final three when it's being decided. Senga will definitely be there. The Yankees will have a finalist, no doubt about it, for the Cy Young Award. And he's probably the front runner right now. Garrett Cole, complete game shutout, final start of the year, 15-4, 2.63 ERA, 33 starts, 209 innings. This is a guy that was the bell cow this year for the Yankees, as he has been since he signed here. But I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that Garrett Cole really staked his claim for that Cy Young today, right, Dan?
Yeah, probably one of the few bright spots in probably what's probably an unusual year for the for some Yankee fans of a certain age that haven't seen the Yankees not make the playoffs many times in their lifetimes. They're kind of about to see what that.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right, Dan. When you think about it, the Yankees have only not made the playoffs since 1994. 94 being the strike shortened season. The Yankees have made the playoffs every single year except for 2008, 2013, 2014, and 2016. So that's 4 years. This will be the fifth year since 1994 that the Yankees have missed the playoffs. You could literally count it on one hand. Now the Mets, on the other hand, is the other way around. You could literally count on one hand the amount of times the Mets have made the playoffs in that time. It's actually one more than that since last year. 2023 put them over the top. But 99, 2000, 2006, 2015, 2016, and 2023. Those are the only playoff appearances the Mets have had since then. And, it's depressing when you think about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And that actually, correction on that, you accidentally said 2023. I think you meant to say 2022.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. I accidentally said 2023. The playoff seasons, we wish that was true, but unfortunately, a very abbreviated 2022 playoff run is what we had. It's just incredible, too, when you look at baseball this season and 101 wins last year for the Mets, didn't even win the division. And, they would have been the best team in baseball this year if they won 101 games. So it's really, really crazy the way things break out sometimes. I know the Braves are right there too, but it's the Braves are on a different level this year. Have you seen the numbers for the Braves? They're only a couple of home runs away from the all-time record. I mean, the all-time record is 309 by the Minnesota Twins a couple of years ago. They're just a few home runs away from shattering that record. And when you look at that lineup up and down, the amount of home runs that they have on that team is staggering. Absolutely staggering. Here, I have to just bring this up because I really couldn't believe it. Obviously, we mentioned the guy that gets it all started for them in Ronald Acuna Jr., and he's having just one phenomenal year. 40 plus home runs, 70 stolen bases. So just the fact that you're putting those two together in the first place is crazy. But I mean, even think about this. So Sean Murphy, the catcher they picked up, 21 home runs, 68 RBIs. The guy's only played in 106 games. That's insane. Matt Olson, 53 home runs, 134 RBIs. That's like video game numbers. Ozzie Albies, it has listed on here 32. I know he hit his 33rd home run today. So 105 RBIs for Ozzie Albies, who is an afterthought on that team. Orlando Arcia, 17 home runs, 64 RBIs. Austin Riley, who everybody forgets about, their third baseman, 37 and 96. Eddie Rosario, remember that left fielder everybody kept saying was washed up when he started off really slow last year? Yeah, well, he only put in 21 home runs and 72 RBIs so far this year. Michael Harris, he's having an off year. 18 home runs, 54 RBIs. He got started slow, but his batting average is just about 300, so he's been hot. Ronald Acuna, like I said, 41 home runs, 103 RBIs, 70 steals. And Marcelo Ozuna, who started off the year terribly, still has 36 home runs and 91 RBIs. So tell me, Dan, where in that lineup do they have a weakness? And not to mention, they have Spencer Strider, who's about to win his 20th game. I can't believe the stability and the depth of talent that the Braves have on that team. It's shocking.
He does. I don't know words cannot right that I just think their only weakness would be if they come across a team in the playoffs, whatever round, if they come across a team that has a lot of pitching, I feel like.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. You're going to have a team that's stacked top to bottom with pitching to beat that team. But man, I mean, when you look at those numbers, that's phenomenal. It's like video game numbers, and it's video game numbers where if your team put that up, you'd even start to think to yourself, this is unrealistic. This is this would never happen in real life. This is how good this team is. Makes no sense.
Yeah,
I
I just have a weird feeling these fans just think already that World Series in the bags. But let me give you a warning to Braves fans, all right? 2006, us Met fans felt the same way. Remember that?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. We thought that,
That was
we didn't think the World Series was in the bag, but man, we thought we were damn close.
Yeah, that was a year I just felt like, how often we ever see the Mets this good, where this team looks like they got a World Series in the bag.
Yeah, it's true. I still can't hear the Bachman Turner Overdrive song, "Taking Care of Business," and not feel partially bad, because that song will always take me back to, that was the song that they played throughout the season in 2006. Every time Billy Wagner would shut the door at Shea Stadium in the ninth inning, they'd play BTO, "Taking Care of Business," and I still hear that song to this day, and just reminds me, and you just feel bad because you think of everything that they should have done that year, and just couldn't get done in the end.
Say same thing. That song does bring memories too. I still remember all those days, Shea Stadium being packed. And I still remember to this day, of course, that shocker Game 7 of the NLCS that just, I had never seen Shea Stadium that silent after that game. And we still don't mention the name of a certain catcher on this 2006 St. Louis Cardinals in our house. That's all I got to say. We don't, my house.
Yeah. He doesn't deserve to have his name mentioned. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely with you on that.
It's similar to how Red Sox fans will not mention the name Bucky Dent. Kind of the same way here in my house with mentioning that name, that certain catcher on the 2006 Cardinals, whose name we won't mention.
Yeah, I definitely get that, my friend. That was one of the hardest losses that I've seen as a Mets fan. So I don't even know how we got down that track, but let's keep it rolling along here. As hey, let's. Unfortunately for us, baseball is just about wrapping up right now. We're seeing a whole bunch of division clinchings and everything go on around the league right now, and it just sucks when your team's not getting in the position to pop any champagne. So, Mets, Yankees out of it. And with that, we'll turn our attention to a little football. And unfortunately, things aren't exactly going too great in football either. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get to some good news by the end of the program tonight, because the Rangers did, in fact, defeat the Islanders in preseason action last night. So we will have some good news before we get to the end here. So please stick with us if we're starting to depress you. Now, when we'll start off just taking a quick little recap of the Giants playing last Thursday against the Niners in San Fran. If you want to see our full coverage, everybody can check out our Patreon, right, Dan? Because we got a lot of fun content on there.
Yep, we had a lot of fun content there, full coverage of that, and it's like a crazy stretch of like early in the season, because I don't know what the NFL did with the scheduling, but we've had I think this is going to be the third time we've had to do two separate shows because of the way they're scheduling. Because you got to next week. We next Sunday we're gonna have to do a Sunday night post game because the Jets are doing a Sunday night game, and then Monday, of course, my Giants are doing the Monday night game. So it's like two two 2 days in a row we have to do post game shows after games that were on prime time.
Exactly. So if you haven't gotten your Cramer and Bobo fill from our weekly Thursday show that comes out on YouTube and podcast form every Thursday, then do yourself a favor and subscribe to our Patreon. It's only $5, and you get a whole bunch of extra content. Me and Bobo do a live post game show. That's right, not pre-taped, live. If you're a Patreon member, you can check it out. We had a nice little audience going the other day when we did our show right after the Jet Patriot game. And so it's a lot of fun. Even if the teams stink, we still have fun with it. We still have a good time. So Jets and the Giants post game show after every game this season. We also got a couple of little extra things coming, and one that came out on the show actually this week, real quick, Dan. Before we fully move on to football, how did you like doing our little special for Bobo's Trackside Minute on the Patreon, where you give a little NASCAR update for our fans.
I enjoy doing that. I hope to be able to do. I plan on doing a couple more of those during the year. I think like a couple more races left in the year. Hopefully, I guess next season it'll be full force. It's kind of a dry run for these last couple of races of the NASCAR Cup Series season. For it'll go in full force, of course, next season for the when the season starts up in February at Daytona. And I think hopefully one of these days I'll be able to say I filmed one of these from a side of a race one day.
Exactly. You'll get your media credentials going on down there. That would be very cool. And yeah, so once again, Bobo's racetrack trackside minute. You can check that out on our Patreon. Also last week on the show, I mentioned I was going to post an old interview from me and Bobo recapping a Halloween party at the compound. That's up there as well. So just a lot of fun extra things that you can check out. We're also going to be putting up some stuff where you are pretty much at a Met game with Bobo today. He filmed some stuff while he's at the doubleheader, so that'll also be coming out on our Patreon as well. So thank you anybody to subscribed already and that's thinking about subscribing, and we really hope that you enjoy the content we're putting out, right, Dan?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll keep it rolling along here. Just quickly, if you're not subscribed and you didn't see our thoughts, Dan, tough 30-10 loss in San Francisco last week for the Giants. Unfortunately, things didn't go their way. The defense kept them in it early. The greatness and the depth of the San Francisco 49ers really let them pull away in the second half of that game. We talked about it a little bit on the Patreon show, but what were your thoughts coming out of this game and your feelings about the Giants now?
I just feel that our offense just wasted just a good opportunity. The way the defense was for most of the game was keeping us in the game until it kind of went flat. We I feel also another weakness of our offense was Daniel Jones just didn't have that. The Saquon Barkley wasn't around, and it usually never goes well when uh when uh when Daniel Jones has to throw too many pass plays.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. You definitely want to limit the chances for Daniel Jones, especially most of the time you can lean on the fact that you have Saquon Barkley, one of the best running backs in the league. But unfortunately, in this past game, the Giants did not have Saquon available. They also didn't have their left tackle Andrew Thomas available. Now it was also it came to light at the end of last week that Saquon was dealing with. They kind of said it was like a 2 or 3 week ankle sprain, but now it's coming out that it's a high ankle sprain, which is a little bit more severe. And they're starting to say that, this is going to be a little bit longer than the 2 or 3 week thing that we had first expected. So, if this ends up being, maybe he's out, because right now, through that first prognosis, you could say, okay, he missed the game last week against, the Niners. He's going to miss this Monday night against the Seahawks, and he'll miss one more game after that. So you'd think by the week of the 15th in October that he would be back for that game, but it seems like it's going to be a couple more weeks. Maybe it'll be Halloween, maybe the week after. If that ends up being the case and we are going into late October and November, Dan, do you think that this Giant offense can keep themselves afloat that whole time that he's out?
The longer he's out, the more that scares me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. If I was a Giants fan, that would definitely scare me a lot too. That's Saquon is not just your average run-of-the-mill running back. He is one of, if not the top running backs in the game. You know, you could make the case that he's hands down a top 3 running back. So Saquon Barkley being out definitely is going to negatively impact the Giants. So yeah, I totally did. I totally agree. That changes the way you game plan. That changes the guys that you're going to want to have in the packages with your team, and so yeah, totally agree with that. And now, like I mentioned briefly too, we move on. The Giants are playing the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. I'll tell you this, Dan. I am not blown away by the Seahawks defense. This is not the Legion of Boom defense from 10 years ago. That 2013, 2015 great Seahawks defense that carried them to 2 Super Bowls. They only won 1, but they got to 2 Super Bowls. So, what are your thoughts on that, Dan? Do you think that, playing a lesser defense could help them? Because, I mean, we saw what the Giants did against the lesser defense. They struggled in the first half, but I think that's because, they're still trying to figure things out a little bit. But once they clicked against the Cardinals, boom, they were off and running, 28 points in that second half. Most of them late.
I just feel like this is a winnable game for the Giants, and it would be a big disappointment if we didn't win this. This game I feel like is winnable on Monday night.
Oh, it's definitely winnable, no doubt about it. I mean, Geno Smith has looked human at times this year. He looked like he was on a freaking roll for a lot of last year, specifically early on. He kind of came back down to earth late in the year. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. If Geno continues to look mediocre and that Seahawks defense is still allowing, the 30 points a game we've seen them allow so far, then maybe the Giants can take advantage of that. And even if they don't drop 30, without Saquon, maybe you can hit 20. And if the defense plays well, you could contain that Seahawks offense. And we saw, look, the Seahawks are a lot less talented than the 49ers. And if the Giants can turn around and, play similar defense like they did for those first 3 3/4 against the Niners, and you could play like that against the Seahawks, then the Giants should be able to put themselves in a position where they can win that game, right?
This game's. I would be extra. I don't know. Just it'd be one of those having to restrain myself from even trying to hit the TV. It'd be step away from the TV, Daniel. Don't hurt the TV because especially now with the way these TVs can't they can't quite take a hit TVs used to.
Exactly. To use an old Bob Kelly line, you can't exactly give him the goon hand like you used to be able to in the old days. So that doesn't go over well with TVs these days. They tend to break very easily. So yeah, you're right about that. And yeah.
Worst part, the way TVs break these days, the screen doesn't look broken, and you don't notice if you've accidentally did something that hit if it, the TV took a hit or something when the TV was off. You don't notice the TV is broken until you turn on the TV. It's like I don't know how it is these screens break, but it's like weird the way the TVs look when they're the way you find out they're broken these days.
That's true. That's true.
It broke it when the TV was off because you notice it if the TV's on. You notice it more. Right.
Well, no doubt about it. Yeah, and so the Giants on that game, yeah, definitely a tough loss for them. And now they're looking ahead. And if you lose that game to Seattle, you fall to 1-3, and then the season could start to snowball on you. And that's what we're also looking to avoid on the other side of MetLife for the Jets, as the Jets this past Sunday lost their 15th consecutive game to the Patriots. I still can't believe it's a real thing. 15 straight losses. The last time they defeated them in a game period was December 27th, 2015. Eric Decker catching the overtime touchdown pass from Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I'm sorry that's like the third time that you've had to hear that over the last week, Dan, but that is a fact, and I can't just get it out of my brain. 15 straight losses to the Patriots. This time comes down at MetLife. Zach Wilson plays one of the worst quarterback games I've ever seen in my entire life. I am so sick of Zach Wilson on this team. The Jets really have to figure something out. And, part of figuring that out is signing a quarterback they did this week. It's not going to knock anybody's socks off. We'll get to that in a second. But, coming out of this loss right now, Dan, what are your impressions as an unbiased observer of the New York Jets?
I just like it was there with the defense, and it was a wasted opportunity, especially the way that I feel the Jets defense played their heart out. They looked like they were keeping the Jets in this game, and Zach Wilson just stunk even more than a skunk.
Well said. Well said. You're absolutely right, man. And you hit the nail on the head, though. I couldn't agree more with what you said. The Jets defense played their heart out. Yeah, there were moments more so early on where I was a little frustrated with their inability to get off the field on third down. But I am not going to sit here and criticize the Jets defense after allowing 13 points to this team. Yeah, sure, they lost 15-10. Two of those were the Zach Wilson safety, where I still don't understand what he was looking at. Nobody in the NFL, Jets fans have been crying about the offensive line. Nobody on Sunday had more time to throw than Zach Wilson. So the Jets offensive line, whether you like it or not, Jet fans, statistically played well on Sunday. They weren't the best, but they played well enough that Zach Wilson should have been able to make something happen. And the fact that he didn't, and like Dan said, this defense played its heart out, and that is this season and last season in a microcosm, where you can look at it and see that as good as the Jets defense played, and as bad as Zach Wilson was, they still had a chance to win it at the end just because of the defense keeping them in the game. And Zach Wilson's so bad that he can't even get it done. And then you have to have a guy like Randall Cobb try and take the blame after the game because he couldn't catch a last-second Hail Mary that, they had a 1% chance of completing from the 50-yard line. There's no way that was going to happen. Even as a fan, I had already made peace with the fact that they're 99% going to lose that game. But, I don't want to see Randall Cobb feeling bad that he didn't catch a miracle, pass from Zach Wilson, because it's Zach Wilson's fault they were in that position in the first place. When your defense allows 13 points, it shouldn't be taking a miracle Hail Mary to try and win this game, right?
Yeah, exactly. And fortunately, that's how the game ended. And I swear I could, in my own head, I could hear you probably yelling every curse in the book, maybe even all 7 deadly words. But
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
The 7 deadly words, I feel you may have been yelling all 7 of them in one sentence.
Yeah, I said all of them twice. Let's put it that way. I was not happy, and as are a lot of Jet fans, and I hear a lot. We talked about this last week. How I felt that this season, or I'm sorry, not this season, that this week against the Patriots was a fork in the road for the year, where if they won that game, they could keep the fans at bay and the people with torches coming for Wilson and the team, and you could feel good about yourself for a little while. And then move on. But if they lost that game, which they did, that things were going to get bad very quickly. and the torches were going to come out, and they did before the game even ended. And there's a lot of unrest with Jet fans right now. We as a fan base, and I'm including myself in that, because I didn't sign up for another season of Zach Wilson. And as much as I love Joe Douglas and I love the position that he put this team in, it is partly Joe Douglas's fault. And you know what? I have to amend that. It is all Joe Douglas's fault that we are in this position right now. Because I said it multiple times, and I'm not a genius. I'm not the only one that said it. The Jets needed to bring in a veteran quarterback. Because if anything happened to Rodgers, and I was just thinking maybe he'd roll his ankle and miss a game or two, we could not put ourselves in a position where a potential division championship, I was thinking, would be out of grasp because we have to rely on Zach Wilson for 2 or 3 games. Well, 2 or 3 games turned into the entire season. And the fact that Joe Douglas did not think to himself along the same lines, I mean, look, the Jets could have Gardner Minshew in here right now, and that would be 1,000 times better than this. The Jets could have Matt Ryan in here right now. That would be 1,000 times better than this. They could have Carson Wentz in here right now, and that would be 1,000 times better than this. But the guy that they ended up turning their sights to, who doesn't really excite you as much as the other names, I guess, but a guy who is a professional quarterback and still an upgrade to Zach Wilson. The Jets brought in backup quarterback Trevor Siemian. He was actually a Jet in 2019 as well. He only played 1 game, a Monday Night Football game during the era where Sam Darnold had mono, and he came in and played that game, and very early on, in almost Aaron Rodgers fashion, broke his ankle, and that was the end of his year. Never played another game as a Jet. That ended the Trevor Siemian era for the Jets and started the Luke Falk era. In other words, an era I want to forget, because that was a very, very difficult run the Jets had that year under Adam Gase. And so I mean, Trevor Siemian comes in. What do you think about him, Dan? Do you remember Trevor Siemian? He was the backup for Peyton Manning for a few years, and he's at least a competent NFL quarterback, right?
Yeah, I feel he's an okay quarterback. I feel like he has some kind of credibility, some decent experience. So I feel maybe you guys got a decent pickup, and I guess the only thing you guys can do is hope for the best.
Yeah, you're right. That's literally all we can do right now is hope for the best. And unfortunately, Trevor Siemian isn't going to be riding in on a white horse this week. The Jets already announced that Zach Wilson will be starting this week, and most Jet fans can only hope that this is the last game Zach Wilson ever starts. Because look, the odds are they're not going to beat the Chiefs. It's not impossible. It's definitely not impossible. Anybody could beat anybody any week. How many people sat here and thought that the Arizona Cardinals were going to beat the Dallas Cowboys? And it happened. How many people here thought that the Houston Texans were going to go out and beat, Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars? It happened. So these type of things happen every single week. And, it doesn't mean that it's impossible, but it also means the odds aren't there. Hell, I have no faith in him, but I would love to come on a week from now or on our Patreon when we're doing the post-game show later that night. And I would love to say I was wrong about every single thing I've ever said about Zach Wilson. He went out there tonight and had 25 for 30, 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and I was wrong about him. But Dan, let's be honest. What are the odds on Sunday we're coming on after the game and I'm talking about that?
Very slim. I feel you're gonna be fuming most likely after Sunday night's game. I
Well,
think you might have. I think Murphy might get you barking after the Jets game on Sunday night.
well, I hope I'm not fired up about it because honestly, football wise, I feel very much dead inside for the rest of this season. I hope the Jets, are able to pull me out of that spiral, but I feel very very dead inside from a football perspective for this season. And the fact that I'm sitting here kind of excited that the Jets signed Trevor Siemian just kind of shows where this season is at the moment. So, we're talking about that. Obviously, the Jets brought in Siemian to play against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Um, you know, Honestly, Dan, looking at it from, obviously the Chiefs being one of the best teams in football. What do you think? Right now, I see a lot of big spreads going on between with Vegas and everything like that. What is your expectations? Do you think the Jets are going to keep it close, or because of their good defense, or do you think that this is going to be a complete blowout?
I just have a feeling it's gonna be a complete blowout, and I just have a feeling a certain someone might be upset about this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely going to be upset about it. No doubt about it. Even though, like I said, I am kind of beaten down by this season, but hey, it's I'm a Jets fan, and I'm going to be upset if they lose that game. And by the way, before we continue on, I wanted to get your opinion because I forgot about this, and it just dawned on me right now too. So a couple of days ago, um, Joe Namath was on with Michael Kay on ESPN Radio here in New York, and Joe Namath went scorched earth on the Jets, ripping the entire organization, ripping the players that are complacent right now, ripping Zach Wilson, saying that he's seen enough, which I totally agree with. Now, let me say this: that I don't disagree with anything Namath said, but obviously the Jets are going to take a little offense to it and everything. And I saw a couple of media personalities trying to start this whole thing because about a day after that, Aaron Rodgers did his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show, which is always entertaining. And Rodgers came out and, said, hey, guys, Jets fans and former Jets players, obviously referring to Namath. And he just pretty much said, guys, you're not helping the situation, Like, let's just all try and keep this thing together, keep it on the tracks, which I totally understand. And I saw some media people trying to act like, oh, Rodgers should keep his mouth shut. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And in a sense, they're kind of right. But guys, what do you expect Aaron Rodgers to say? He's not an outside observer. He's an active member of the New York Jets. Do you think he's going to come out and rip his teammates like that? I mean, I don't understand what people expected him to say. I have no problem with what Rodgers said, and I think anybody that does is just trying to create controversy, right?
Yeah, I just feel Aaron Rodgers is doing what he's I guess as much as what you can do when you're an injured player like that. And he's just trying to pick up his teammates as best as he can.
Yeah, and he's not going to talk badly about them. He likes Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, maybe a minor part, but part of the reason why Aaron Rodgers is here in the first place is because he has a pre-existing relationship with Zach Wilson. So, he's not going to throw the kid under the bus. And even though us as fans can criticize him and say everything, Aaron Rodgers is a professional, and he knows that that doesn't help anything. So he's going to keep his thoughts to himself. The same reason which in the same interview I liked what he said, where he was saying that Garrett Wilson and Michael Carter were seen by TV cameras on the sidelines getting into arguments and being demonstrative. Carter himself got into an argument with one of the offensive coaches, and Rodgers was saying, you got to keep that in the locker room. We don't want to see that on the sidelines. And I feel like what Rodgers is saying right now is not only not a bad thing, it's part of the leadership that the Jets wanted when they traded for him, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you're seeing in this. in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. So hey, we got this is only this is only going into week 4 now, as this episode 82 of Best Seat in the House podcast will debut this Thursday, and Thursday night football will be the beginning of week 4. So we are only in week 4, and think about how much has happened over these first 4 weeks, Dan. We're not even a quarter of the way through the season, and we still got a lot to go. So still a lot of times for both of our teams to dig themselves out of their holes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So with that said, we're just about ready to get out of here, but I did want to recap one last good piece of news. Like I said, the New York Rangers last night played their first home game of the preseason at Madison Square Garden. It was the Islanders' first preseason game, and the Rangers defeated them 4-2, jumping out to an early 3-0 lead. It was nice to see the boys back on Garden Ice. Dan, did you catch any of this game?
Yeah, I caught this game. They look good in this game. The one thing that's a little bit kind of nervous is that it's getting closer to the season, and the Mika Zibanejad is dealing with some injuries, and the bread man, the Ante Panarin, is dealing with a little bit of injury issues going into the season.
Yeah, that's true. A couple of their top guys, Zibanejad and Panarin, are a little banged up. I think that they'll be okay by the beginning of the regular season. The Rangers actually have a very weird preseason this year, where they play their final preseason game on October 8th. So it actually, this is the latest the NHL preseason has gone in a long time that I can remember. Usually by earlier than that, the preseason's over. It doesn't really stretch much into October outside of the first couple of days. So October 8th is their final preseason game. They don't open up until around the 15th. So it's still, we still have a good amount of time to get these guys healthy and get them back in. But it was nice to see Dylan Garand, a Ranger minor leaguer, get a shot last night in relief of Igor, who also looked very good. They had a really, really awesome goal by Blake Wheeler on a no-look pass from Jake Lecision. So we saw a lot of good things last night, including Capo Caco hoping to maybe kick off a big year for him, netting one 15 seconds into the game. So, we got to hope that these young kids like Caco and Lafreniere are really ready to jump off. But, one thing I think that's really going to improve for the Rangers this year under Peter Laviolette, who, by the way, that was his first win, albeit not official, as Rangers head coach, and his first win on Garden Ice as the Rangers head coach. I think the defense is vastly going to improve for the Rangers this year. Especially, I really liked what I saw at a Gustafsson, one of the defensemen the Rangers brought in this year, veteran defenseman. And I think it's going to be much better this year. What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I'm hoping that they one up what we did last year, and such a disappointing first round exit last year. That still just gives me just a bad taste when I realize how last year ended.
Yeah, it's true. Last year ended about as bad as it could, blowing that series against the Devils, especially when you see how easily the Devils were beaten the next round by the Carolina Hurricanes. So it just kind of made you feel even worse, right?
Yeah, and I've never seen the Rangers just play such a lopsided game. I've never seen such a lopsided game 7 loss in Rangers history, I feel like.
Yeah. And such a weird lopsided series where the Rangers started off so good those first 2 games, and then it was almost like the last 5 games of the series, sure, they were able to win one of them, but they just did not look good in most of those, right?
Yeah, it's just like I was like, all those games just left my head scratching. It's just
Yeah, you're right, man. It's very tough to wrap your head around how bad that series got, and I guess that's kind of why Gerard Gallant is no longer the head coach, and why Peter Laviolette is in the driver's seat now. So I like that too. I think Laviolette is going to be a good coach for the Rangers. And yeah, I think that's just about going to do it for us, Dan. Before we get out of here, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, my Twitter account Bobo103NYC. Also my Instagram Bobo7K. And Daniel Curler. One word, Daniel Curler.
That's right. And make sure to follow Dan on all of his platforms like that. Don't forget to, as you can see on the bottom, follow BSith_podcast on Twitter, at Best Seat in the House on Instagram, Best Seat in the House podcast on Instagram, and like and subscribe to us on YouTube and our Patreon. Obviously, as we mentioned, you can check us out patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. So once again, thank you to everybody for tuning into the show and catching our weekly show on YouTube. If you'd like, please join us on Patreon on Sunday as we recap the Jets and the Chiefs following Sunday Night Football. So probably live, by the way, not pre-taped, live or sometime around 11:30 after the conclusion of the game. And then the same thing the following night, deja vu all over again, as we're doing it right after Monday Night Football for Giants Seahawks. So be with us for all the post-game extras and bonus content you can handle. So for Robert Cramer and Daniel Bobo Curlin, thank you for tuning into Best Seat in the House podcast. And we have one last message before we get out of here.
Has been the Best Seat in the House podcast.
We'll catch you next week, everybody.